The elevator doors slide open with a soft chime, revealing the pristine marble foyer of Manhattan's most exclusive penthouse. John Reynolds steps out, his Italian leather shoes echoing against the cold stone as he loosens his black tie. The city sparkles 40 floors below through floor-to-ceiling windows, but something feels wrong. Terribly wrong. The silence hits him first. No gentle hum of the smart home system. No soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. No familiar sounds of life in a space where he's lived for 8 years. John flicks the light switch and recessed lighting floods the entrance hall, casting long shadows that seem to reach toward him like accusing fingers. "What the hell?" he whispers, his voice cracking the silence like breaking glass. The living room spreads before him like a museum exhibit. Every piece of furniture sits exactly where it should, but the life has been drained from the space. His collection of first-edition business books gone. The crystal decanter set his father gave him before he died vanished. Even the small bronze sculpture his assistant bought him last Christmas has disappeared without a trace. John rushes to his home office, his heart pounding against his ribs. The mahogany desk sits empty except for dust outlines where his laptop and monitors once lived. The safe behind his diplomas hangs open, completely hollow. Everything he's worked for, everything that defined his success, has evaporated like morning mist. "This has to be a mistake," he mutters, pulling out his phone with trembling fingers. Some kind of moving company mix-up but even as he speaks, he knows this isn't random. Someone has surgically removed his entire life while leaving the furniture as a cruel reminder of what once was. But what happened next shocked everyone who would later hear this story. In the dining room, sitting alone on the glossy black table like a solitary island in an ocean of emptiness, lies a single photograph. John approaches it slowly, his breathing shallow. He's seen thousands of photos of himself over the years, corporate headshots, magazine covers, charity gala snapshots. But this one makes his blood run cold. The image shows him smiling broadly, standing in front of a rustic log cabin with snow-capped mountains rising behind him. He's wearing a casual flannel shirt he's never owned, his arm draped around a woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. They both look genuinely happy, radiating the kind of warmth John hasn't felt in decades. The problem is crystal clear. John has never been to this place. He's never met this woman. He's never owned that flannel shirt, and he certainly has never smiled like that, open, unguarded, completely at peace. Little did John know that this photograph would unravel everything he thought he understood about his own existence. His hands shake as he turns the photo over. Written in elegant cursive across the back are 4 words that stop his heart. "Come home to us." The memory comes rushing back like a dam bursting. Just 12 hours earlier, he'd been standing in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, accepting the CEO of the Year award from the Manhattan Business Council. Champagne flutes clinked around him as investors and board members congratulated Reynolds Industries on another record-breaking quarter. "Ladies and gentlemen," he had announced to the crowd of 500, his voice commanding every ear in the room. "Success isn't about luck or connections. It's about sacrificing everything that doesn't matter to achieve what does." The applause had been thunderous. His closest advisor, Margaret Chen, had whispered in his ear, "That's why you're the king of this city, John. Nobody else has your focus." But as he stands in his emptied penthouse, holding a photograph of a life he's never lived, John realizes his laser focus might have blinded him to something crucial. The woman in the photo has his eyes, the same deep green that he sees in the mirror every morning. Her smile carries the same slight dimple in her left cheek that he's always been self-conscious about. This decision would change everything, but John doesn't know that yet as he sinks into his leather chair, the only piece of furniture that still feels real. He studies every pixel of the mysterious image, searching for clues in the background details. The cabin looks hand-built, with care and love evident in every log. Pine trees frame the scene like nature's own cathedral. And there, barely visible at the edge of the frame, stands a small wooden sign that makes John's vision blur. The sign reads, "Welcome to Cedar Falls, Colorado, population 847. John has never been to Colorado. He's barely been outside of New York and Los Angeles for anything other than business. Yet something deep in his chest resonates with this place like a tuning fork struck against his soul. A warmth he can't explain spreads through him as he stares at the mountains in the background. But the real shock was still coming. As John continues examining the photograph under the dining room's pendant light, he notices something that makes his breath catch in his throat. In the reflection of the cabin's window behind them, barely visible but unmistakably there, stands a third figure. Someone taking the photograph from the doorway, their silhouette small and feminine. The realization hits him like a physical blow. This isn't just a random photo of strangers who happen to look like him. This is documentation of a moment that should have been precious, should have been treasured, should have been his. But somehow, somewhere in the maze of his carefully constructed life, this moment was stolen from him. John Reynolds, the man who controls billion-dollar deals with a handshake and commands rooms full of executives with a glance, suddenly feels smaller than he has since childhood. In his empty penthouse, surrounded by the hollow echoes of his former life, he clutches the photograph like a lifeline and asks the question that will haunt him until he finds the answer. Who am I really? John stares at the photograph with trembling hands, his mind racing through possibilities that all seem impossible. The silence of his empty penthouse feels suffocating, pressing against him like a weight he can't shake off. He's built his entire life on control, on knowing every detail of every deal. But this single image has shattered that foundation completely. This doesn't make sense, he whispers to himself, studying every pixel of his own face in the photo. The smile looks genuine, natural, like he belongs in that mountain setting, but he has absolutely no memory of being there. The fear creeping up his spine is foreign to him. John Reynolds doesn't do fear. By 10 a.m., he's sitting across from Sarah Lopez in her cramped downtown office. The private investigator looks tired, her desk cluttered with case files and cold coffee cups, but her eyes sharpen when John slides the photograph across the scratched wood surface. I need to know everything about this photo. When it was taken, where, who took it, and how the hell it ended up in my apartment. His voice carries the authority he's used to commanding boardrooms with, but there's an edge of desperation he can't quite hide. Sarah picks up the photograph, examining it under her desk lamp. This is interesting. The lighting suggests early morning, and that mountain range. She reaches for a magnifying glass. I'm seeing what looks like Colorado's Front Range. The vegetation, the rock formations, definitely somewhere near the Rockies. John's breath catches in his throat. Colorado. The word triggers something deep in his memory, like a door creaking open in a house he thought was empty. He sees flashes, a woman's laughter, the smell of pine trees, hands teaching him to tie his shoes on a wooden porch. Colorado, he repeats slowly. I think I might have been there as a child, but that's impossible. I grew up in boarding schools on the East Coast. Sarah's expression shifts, becoming more intrigued. Childhood memories can be tricky, especially traumatic ones. Sometimes our minds bury things to protect us. She pulls out a laptop and starts typing. Give me a day or two. I have contacts in Colorado who specialize in genealogy research. The next morning, John's walking into his company's board meeting when his phone buzzes. Sarah's text is short but explosive. Found connection to small town called Millfield, Colorado. You need to see this. But before he can respond, his board of directors are staring at him with expressions that range from concerned to hostile. Margaret Chen, his longtime CFO, speaks first. John, we need to talk about your behavior lately. Missing meetings, distracted during presentations, and yesterday you were completely zoned out during the Henderson acquisition call. The stockholders are getting nervous, adds board member Robert Hayes. Your leadership has always been steady, predictable. This isn't like you. John wants to tell them about the photo, about the growing certainty that everything he knows about himself might be a lie, but the words stick in his throat. These people have known him for 15 years as the cold, calculating CEO who never lets emotion cloud judgment. How can he explain that he's unraveling over a single photograph? I'm handling some personal matters, he says instead. Nothing that affects the company. Margaret leans forward. John, you missed the Matthews Industries deadline because you were staring out the window for 20 minutes. That cost us $12 million. The room falls silent. John realizes his hands are shaking again, the same way they did when he held the photograph. He's losing control, and these people can smell weakness like sharks smell blood in the water. His phone buzzes again. Sarah's calling. I need to take this, he says, standing abruptly. John, we're not finished here. Margaret calls after him, but he's already walking out. In his office, he answers Sarah's call with his heart pounding. You're not going to believe what I found. Sarah's voice crackles through the phone. That photo was taken in Millfield, Colorado, about 35 years ago. And John, there's a woman in the background you might want to see. She sends him a zoomed-in section of the photograph. John's blood turns to ice as he stares at a partially visible female figure standing behind a fence. Her face is mostly obscured, but something about her posture, her stance, feels achingly familiar. There's something else, Sarah continues. I found records of a family with your last name who lived in Millfield around that time. A woman named Elizabeth Reynolds who worked at the local diner. She disappeared suddenly in 1988, right around the time this photo would have been taken. John drops into his chair, the corporate world around him suddenly feeling like a stage set, artificial and meaningless. 35 years ago would make him about 5 years old, exactly the age of the boy in the photograph. Sarah, I need to know, do you have any personal connection to Colorado? There's a pause on the other end. Actually, yes. My aunt lived in Millfield for a while before she moved to Denver. Small world, right? But as John stares at the woman in the background of the photo, he has a sinking feeling that it's not a small world at all. It's a carefully constructed web, and he's been caught in the center of it his entire life without even knowing. The pieces are starting to form a picture he's terrified to see completely, but he knows there's only one way forward now. He has to go to Colorado no matter what it costs him or what he might find there. The interstate stretched endlessly before John's rented sedan as he drove through the winding mountain roads toward Millfield, Colorado. Every mile brought a strange tingling sensation, like his body was remembering something his mind had forgotten. The photograph sat on the passenger seat beside him, its edges worn from his constant handling over the past 2 days. Population 3,847. Welcome to Millfield, the weathered sign proclaimed as he entered the town. John pulled over and stared at the main street with its brick buildings and hand-painted store signs. The diner on the corner, the old courthouse with its clock tower, the antique shop with wind chimes singing in the breeze. It all felt hauntingly familiar. His phone buzzed. Sarah's voice crackled through the speaker. John, I've been digging deeper into your family records. There's something you need to know about my connection to all this. What kind of connection? John asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. My grandmother's maiden name was Reynolds. I think we might be related somehow. I'm still piecing it together, but there are too many coincidences here. John's heart hammered in his chest. First the mysterious photograph, now his private investigator might be family. Keep digging, Sarah. I'm in Millfield now, and something about this place feels like home. He parked downtown and walked toward the courthouse, following an inexplicable pull. Inside, the town historian, an elderly woman named Eleanor Hartwell, looked up from her desk with recognition flickering in her weathered eyes. My goodness, she whispered, adjusting her glasses. You look just like her. Like who? John stepped closer, his pulse quickening. Eleanor pulled out a worn photo album and turned to a page that made John's breath catch. There, in a photograph from 1985, stood a young woman holding a baby. The woman's face was unmistakable. She was the same person standing beside him in the mysterious photograph from his penthouse. This is Margaret Reynolds, Eleanor said softly. She lived here until you were about 2 years old. Then one day she just disappeared. Said she had to give you up to give you a better life in the city. The room spun around John. He gripped the edge of the desk as fragments of memories surfaced, a woman's gentle voice singing lullabies, the smell of wildflowers, warm arms holding him close. That's my mother, he whispered. Eleanor nodded. She used to bring you to the town festivals. You loved the carousel in the park. She'd say you were going to be someone important someday. But she worried this small town couldn't give you what you needed. Where is she now? The words tumbled out desperately. That's the thing, dear. She came back about 15 years ago. Lives in the old farmhouse on Willow Creek Road. She never stopped hoping you'd come home. John's phone rang, interrupting the moment. Sarah's voice was urgent. John, I need to tell you something important. I've been going through my grandmother's papers and I found letters. My Aunt Margaret, she's been writing to my family about her son she gave up for adoption. A son named Johnny Reynolds who became a CEO in New York. The pieces crashed together with stunning clarity. Sarah wasn't just his investigator, she was his cousin. Margaret wasn't just the woman in the photograph. She was his mother, alive and waiting for him just miles away. But before John could respond, Eleanor's expression shifted to concern as she looked out the window. That's odd, she murmured. There's smoke coming from the direction of the Historical Society building. They rushed outside to see black smoke billowing from the archives building 3 blocks away. Fire trucks wailed in the distance, but John's investigative instincts kicked in. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone didn't want him finding the truth about his past. As he stood watching the flames consume decades of records, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging into the past, or your new family won't have a future. The letter trembles in John's hands as he reads the words that shatter everything he thought he knew about himself. My dearest John. It begins, written in careful cursive. If you're reading this, then somehow you've found your way back to where your story truly began. I am Margaret Coleman, and I am your mother. John sinks into the wooden chair of the small Colorado cafe, the letter's weight far heavier than its delicate paper suggests. The woman who raised him in New York, who he buried 5 years ago, wasn't his biological mother. Margaret writes about a young love affair, an unplanned pregnancy, and the heartbreaking decision to give him up to ensure he'd have opportunities she couldn't provide. I kept only one photograph, the letter continues. Taken the day I held you for the last time in the meadow behind our family home. I wanted you to know that you were loved, even in goodbye. Sarah slides into the seat across from him, her expression grave. John, we need to leave. Now. He looks up from the letter, his eyes unfocused. She loved me, he whispers. All these years, I thought I was unwanted. Listen to me, Sarah says urgently, glancing toward the window. The Historical Society building is on fire. Every record, every document we might have needed, it's all gone. Through the cafe window, they can see orange flames licking the night sky where the archives building stands. Fire trucks scream through the quiet streets, but John knows it's too late. Someone doesn't want him digging deeper. His phone buzzes with a call from his board chairman. Reynolds, where the hell are you? We've got a situation. Someone's been asking questions about the Clearwater Development Project. John's blood runs cold. Clearwater Development, the project that built luxury condos on what used to be farmland. Farmland in Colorado. He looks at Sarah, who's been listening. She nods grimly. That's the land from your photograph, she says quietly. Your family's land. The pieces click together with sickening clarity. His company didn't just develop random property, they destroyed his heritage. The meadow where his mother held him for the last time now sits beneath concrete and steel. Sir, are you there? The chairman's voice crackles through the phone. I'm here, John says, his voice barely controlled. Good, because we need you back in New York immediately. There are some very serious people asking very serious questions about how we acquired that Colorado property. Questions that could destroy everything we've built. Sarah leans forward. John, my research shows the Clearwater deal involved forged documents. Your company essentially stole that land from families who'd owned it for generations. The moral weight crushes down on him. His empire, his success, his entire life, built on the destruction of his own family's legacy. The irony is almost unbearable. What do you want me to do? He asks the chairman. Come home. Keep your mouth shut. And let our lawyers handle this. We've invested too much to let some small-town nostalgia trip bring down a Fortune 500 company. John stares at the letter in his hands, then at Sarah, whose aunt was Margaret Coleman. His mother. Sarah is his cousin, connected to him not just by this mystery but by blood. There's something else, Sarah says softly. The fire wasn't an accident. I saw someone leaving the building right before it started. Someone who knew we'd been there asking questions. The reality hits him like a physical blow. They're not just fighting corporate interests. They're up against people willing to commit arson to protect their secrets. His phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or the next fire won't be in an empty building. Your family in Colorado isn't safe. John's hands shake as he reads the words. Family in Colorado. Margaret Coleman might be gone, but she had other relatives. People who still live in this town. People who are now in danger because of his search for truth. They're threatening innocent people because of me, he whispers. Sarah grabs his arm. We can't let them win. Your mother's story deserves to be told. Outside, the sirens wail as the last of his family's history turns to ash. John Reynolds faces the hardest choice of his life. Protect his corporate empire and the people threatening his family, or risk everything to honor the mother who loved him enough to let him go. The threatening message glows on his phone screen as another text arrives. You have 24 hours to return to New York and forget everything you've learned. The choice is yours. John's hands shake as he holds the worn letter. Sarah's Aunt Elena standing before him in her modest Colorado living room. The photograph that started everything sits between them on the coffee table, and suddenly, the pieces of his fractured life begin clicking into place. You're my mother, he whispers, the words barely audible. Elena's eyes fill with tears as she nods, her weathered hands reaching toward him. I was 17 when I had you, she says, her voice trembling. Your father was the son of a powerful New York businessman. When his family found out about the pregnancy, they offered me money to disappear. She pauses, wiping her eyes. I thought I was doing what was best for you. They promised you'd have everything I couldn't give you. Sarah moves closer to John, her own emotions raw. That's why the records were sealed. Your adoptive family buried the truth so deep, even you forgot where you came from. A flashback reveals the devastating truth. The photograph was taken during Elena's one secret visit to see John when he was 5 years old. She'd watched him play in a Denver park from a distance, too afraid to approach. A kind stranger had captured the moment when John looked directly at her and smiled, somehow sensing her presence. Elena kept that photo as her only connection to the son she'd given up. John's phone buzzes with urgent messages from his board of directors, demanding his return to New York. The corporate empire he built stands ready to crumble if he doesn't suppress this truth. His adoptive father's business partners are threatening lawsuits, media manipulation, anything to keep their decades-old secret buried. They took everything from us, Elena says softly. Your father's family used their influence to force me out of New York. They erased me from your life completely. John looks at Sarah, then back at his mother. For 35 years, he'd felt this inexplicable emptiness, this driving need to achieve more and more, never understanding why success never filled the void. Now he knows he'd been searching for the love and connection that was stolen from him. I have a choice to make, he says, his voice growing stronger. I can go back to New York, protect the company, and pretend this never happened. Or you can choose truth over profit, Sarah finishes. Choose family over fear. John stands, his decision crystallizing. He calls his assistant, his voice firm and resolute. Cancel all my meetings for the week. Schedule a press conference for Friday. And get me the best lawyers in the country. We're exposing everything. The next scene shows John in a packed Denver courtroom, cameras rolling as he faces down his adoptive family's legal team. Elena sits in the front row, Sarah beside her, both women watching as John dismantles the web of lies that shaped his life. For too long, powerful people have used their influence to rewrite history, to erase inconvenient truths, John declares to the packed room. But some truths are too important to bury. Today, I choose my real family over a fortune built on deception. The corporate empire crumbles, but John feels lighter than he has in decades. He moves to Colorado, opening a small consulting firm that helps families reconnect with lost relatives. Sarah joins him as his business partner and, eventually, something more. The final shot shows John and Elena in her garden, planting flowers together. The empty penthouse is just a memory now, replaced by a small house filled with laughter, photographs, and the kind of love that money can't buy. You know what I learned? John says, addressing the camera directly. Success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice for the people who matter. That empty penthouse was a prison built from lies. This little house, this is freedom. He holds up the original photograph, now framed and sitting on Elena's mantle. Sometimes the most important journey isn't about where you're going. It's about finding your way back to who you really are. The screen fades to black with simple white text. What would you sacrifice to find the truth about your own story? John's transformation is complete. From a cold, isolated CEO to a man who chose love over legacy, truth over treasure. The photograph that once represented mystery now represents healing, connection, and the power of choosing what really matters. What story from your own past might be waiting to set you free? Share your thoughts in the comments below.